Let's get into this horrific story from Edmonton. So, the Edmonton police are objecting to a decision by Crown prosecutors to offer a plea deal to a woman charged with murdering an 8-year-old Indigenous girl. Now, we don't know because there's a publication ban here. It's very difficult to report on the details of this case, but it sounds like it is just absolutely horrific, even to the police involved, who are probably quite hardened to violence against children. They say it's an unprecedented move in which the service laid bare its dissatisfaction with the organization that prosecutes most of its cases. The EPS sent a letter to Provincial Assistant Deputy Justice Minister Kim Goddard expressing shock and horror on learning the accused is expected to plead down from first-degree murder, so premeditated, the worst kind, to manslaughter, just an oopsie doodle where a life got ended. The woman, who cannot be named under a publication ban, and so we're left to fill in the blanks about the relationship to the child, was charged by police in 2023 after the girl went missing from an Edmonton home. The girl's body was later moved to Maskwacis in a hockey bag and abandoned like garbage, that's me taking liberties, but in the bed of a pickup. In the letter obtained by Post Media and released to other outlets Tuesday, EPS Executive Director of Legal Services Megan Hankiewicz said the Crown has offered the accused 8 years in prison as part of a plea deal with the defense. And they said the plea deal would bring the administration of justice into disrepute and constitute a significant miscarriage of justice. Were the accused convicted of first-degree murder, she would face life with no parole for 25 years. This is horrifying, but it shows that even the police have had enough with this sort of stuff, where the Crown and the justices are colluding to damage the public trust in the justice system. And, and to put it into context, I mean, for some convoy-related offenses, Crown and judges are musing about 10 years, 9 years, 10 years. So annoying the government is more of a crime than murdering a child and throwing her out like garbage. I'll go to David first.
Yeah, look, I mean, related to our previous conversation, the brilliant thing about the law, I studied law over in England, got a law degree. The brilliant thing about the law is you're required to actually write out specifically why you made the decision that you made. This is jurisprudence, right? You have to say, based on what's happened in the past, in similar cases, this will anchor the logic of the decision that I'm going to make right now in this case. And it's called stare decisis. And there's a condition under which a judge makes a decision, and the judge says, I'm not just sort of, spitballing this. I'm telling you, these are the decisions that have been made in the past in similar circumstances. And what that process is meant to do, it's meant to force a judge to go through a process where they say, given these things that have existed in the past, given this evolution of the law with respect to this issue that I'm dealing with and deciding on, this will be my decision. This is why I will make this decision. It's an extremely important part of the law, is the judges expressing what they're doing. And the reason it's important is for exactly the issue that you raised, which is proportionality. So if somebody jaywalks and they continue to jaywalk, they've been told by the cop not to jaywalk, and the cop's like, okay, I'm taking you in, I'm going to book you. Like, go explain to a judge why you're a perennial jaywalker, buddy, right? You go in and you deal with that. If the jaywalker gets a longer sentence from an antagonistic judge because he happens not to like the jaywalker's politics than someone that, commits murder in the first degree, you've got a problem with proportionality. Because the proportionality is typically what is the reasonableness standard under which the possibility that this person formed a threat to other people's welfare or would continue to form a threat to other people's welfare needs to be contained by the sentencing, right? And so if somebody actively plans to murder a child and hide their body and do a bunch of things, not only do you have all the evidence you need to enforce a proportional sentence, which is you're not allowed to be a part of society for 25 years, no exceptions, but you don't have any evidentiary problems. You don't have to guess if she's the one that did it. You don't have to guess who owned the hockey bag, where it went, what happened. So in a normal judicial process, when you have no problem with the evidence, you have no problem with determining the cause of what happened or the purpose and the motivation for the crime, and you're able to, as a judge, decide based on what I see, there's no possible way anybody else could have done it. There's no possible excuse for having done it except for deep, dark evil in the heart of the person that did it. As a result of that, this person is removed from society for 25 years. And in some cultures, you get the death penalty because you voted with your feet to do something so egregious, we're removing you from society permanently, right? And so if you protest a government that had arrogated unto itself a bunch of anti-scientific mandates, screwed those up, failed to operate the way that other more civilized countries did by removing those mandates in a timely manner, and you protest that in the capital city, and the government that screwed up those mandates and ultimately ended up removing them 3 months after your protest anyway, decides they don't like the fact that you dissented from them. They want to make you a public example of you, and they bend the law to give you a longer incarceration period than somebody that murdered a child in a premeditated way in the first degree. You fracture the law, but you also fracture the point of jurisprudence and the explanation of law in general. And again, in this country, we have a legal philosophy that has been hijacked by people that have an ideology. And part of their ideology is about their own personal control and about the control of their ideological perspectives on things. And if you challenge that through dissent, they're going to try and punish you to try and keep others from challenging through dissent. But that's not a valid legal basis for a match between whatever crime you committed, if it's mischief, and the actual charges or time you have to serve. And so I think at the heart of this problem that we see in Edmonton is what we related to previously. The law itself has been broken by an ideology that is broken. And then in addition to that, we have judges that have absorbed that ideology and live by that ideology, and they further break the law by not abiding by the rules of the law, which is explaining the proportionality of their decisions by virtue of explaining other things. And so when this happens, you're going to get more and more Canadians thinking to themselves, I don't trust the system. I can't trust the police because they ultimately are the ones that are held by these judges in the system. I can't trust Crown prosecutors. I can't trust these judges. Why not? Because instead of doing the things judges are supposed to do to secure the fact that their decisions are being made objectively with respect to what's happened in the past and what the law says, they're actually being political activists that will punish me for my politics or my perspective, and they'll let people that have done truly evil things off the hook because they've lost all kinds of moral objectivity and moral mores. And if you allow the law to become objective to politics instead of rooted in the objectivity of jurisprudence and precedent and forced to explain what they're doing, you begin to basically betray the population that you're supposed to protect. And when that happens, you can expect that the next time that somebody does something that to somebody else's little 8-year-old girl, they're not going to rely on the law anymore. They're going to make sure that person serves more than 25 years, 6 feet under. Yeah. And you're going to have to guess how they killed that person, but you're never going to find out because they're going to hire somebody who knows how to do it and never get caught. And you're going to have vigilantes everywhere because you have to just ask yourself, if it's within your power, whoever this woman is, you know, and again, I don't know the case and I don't want to, but if it's within your power and you find out there's this collusive, sick, twisted judicial philosophy that allows her to get off the hook, get 8 years and be out in 5, and you see them in the street, the chances that if it was my little niece, that she would live that long without me wanting to find a way to see justice done, you know, very low. And that's a hard thing to say, but I think what you're going to see is when people watch this film of Irina Zarutska getting murdered in cold blood, the natural, and maybe you're speaking as a guy, the natural tendency is to just wish you had been on that bus. Wish you had been on that train. Just wish. You wish you'd been there to stop the damage, stop the sick brutality, the darkness, right? You do everything in your power to do that. If we can't rely on the system to do that retroactively anymore, you're going to see more and more people decide that they're going to take the law into their own hands. And the degree of people being creative in serving revenge cold in their own way is the reason why we have judges and systems and laws and why we have judicial, because we don't want a society that's based on an eye for an eye and mercenary responses to things like this. But this legal philosophy is flirting with a very dangerous moment, because when you have this much injustice going on, people's cry for justice, it's their innate passion to see justice done, will convert itself into activism, and that's a dangerous place for society to be in. But we're not seeing a system that's able to handle these things, and this is across the West at this point.
I want to go to Jeremy real quick. You know, a lot of the Liberals will not shut up about Indigenous reconciliation, but what does it say about a system that values a little Indigenous girl's life, 8 years old? Her life is worth 8 years behind bars. I can't even believe that I'm reading this headline, and good for the police for taking this unprecedented step of calling out the officials for what they're doing here. Jeremy, to you.
So over the past few decades, we've seen a real problem with missing and murdered Indigenous women. And we can talk all we want about reconciliation. The government can put forward press conferences, they can talk, but there is a real problem. And the fact that this person who murdered a little girl is getting out after, as David said, 5 to 8 years is frankly a failure of the legal system. This person poses a significant threat, not only to society at large, but to Indigenous communities as a whole. When someone goes in and kills a member of your community, it does irreparable damage to not only the families, but the community at large. And reconciliation is great, and talking is great, and press conferences, when there's significant impact on the communities themselves, and we're just not seeing anything done about it, there's going to be a distrust of the government.
Another flaw in our system is that there was a publication ban on this story to begin with, because when a publication ban is ordered by the judge, it sort of ensures the narrative control, or the control of the ideological control of the court, that nobody has the details about this case because it was ordered shut down at the very beginning. It is part of the problem. It goes so deep that Edmonton police said that they will release details about the case so the public can decide whether a manslaughter plea was appropriate or not. And we should encourage Edmonton police to do exactly that, because if the public doesn't have the facts of the case, they can't make a moral or ethical decision on if we should support this kind of sentencing. And I think we can all agree 8 years for the life of a child is woefully inadequate, almost criminally inadequate. And that again, this just goes back to good and evil. Is this a society that we want to promote and live in, where child murderers can be off the hook in 8 years? Is this what we want for us? If the answer is no, we need some massive judicial reform to make sure that these cases don't go this way. And I'll just end by saying I really do hope that Edmonton Police Service does release the details of this case so the Canadian public can get their minds around it.
Yeah, I think we need to know the evil that was allegedly, don't sue me, committed here. And, I understand why publication bans end up in place, of course, to protect the victim, but the victim is deceased here. We want to protect the jury pool if the first-degree murder charges go forward, and I hope they do. But at the same time, I know a lot about Danny Senecal in Welland, Ontario, and what he did and what he's accused of. So I don't know why we can't know what is so outraging the police here. I believe it is in the public interest to know.